Hi, in this video we'll be looking at the straight line method of depreciation, and in the previous videos we've looked at what we mean by depreciation, and we've also covered some key terms, which was our cost, residual value and useful life. So I won't repeat what those concepts are in this video. I'll put a link to that video which should be up on the screen, but yeah, in this video we're just going to focus on this actual method and go through an example, because we've already covered some of these key concepts. So the straight line method of depreciation says that each year the same depreciation charge is applied to the asset. So we have a non-current asset, say a long-term asset like a machine, and each year we're going to depreciate it by exactly the same amount, and that's why it's a straight line method. That's why we call it that, because we're depreciating the same amount each year. And there are multiple methods of depreciation. The other one that we tend to use commonly is the reducing balance method, and we'll discuss that in the next video. And the way we choose between these two methods, why we'd use the straight line method, is because it makes sense for our asset. We've got an asset where each year it will decrease in value by pretty much the same amount, and again we discuss some of the reasons why we depreciate assets, say through usage. So if it's a machine that is, say, going to have some wear and tear each year, and it's going to be roughly the same amount of wear and tear each year, then it might make sense to use the straight line method and just depreciate the same amount each year. And it's just quite a simple way to do things. So the next thing we're going to look at is, how do we actually calculate this depreciation charge? How much are we going to charge in depreciation to our accounts for an asset? Well, our annual depreciation charge we can calculate with this equation here, which is the cost minus residual value divided by useful life. And we went into detail on what those were in a previous video, but just our cost of an asset, how much did we pay for it, plus delivery and legal costs, minus the residual value, so what do we estimate we can sell this asset for once we're done using it, and divide that by the useful life, so how many, say, years are we going to be using this asset for, how long is it going to generate us revenue. So that's our simple equation, and this depreciation charge is the amount each year we'll be charging in depreciation to our accounts. And the final point to note here is that straight line depreciation is charged to the accounts on a monthly basis. So we're going to be working out in our example an annual depreciation charge, how much we charge for each year, and then we can just split that onto a monthly basis, say divide it by 12 and charge it to the accounts. And we do it on a monthly basis, so it more accurately represents the position of our business. So let's run through an example. We're looking at ABC Limited, and it purchases a machine for £1,000 on the 30th of June 2021. And this machine is going to be available for it to use on the 30th of June when it purchases it. The business at the time of purchase is going to estimate that it can sell the machine for £150 in 17 years. So what is the depreciation charge to be recognised in our accounts in the year ended 31st of December 2021? So a few things we should immediately note from this is that we have got our cost of the asset of £1,000. We have got our useful life of the asset, which is 17 years. Useful life. And we've got our residual value here as £150. Residual value. So in a question it may just state what these values are, or it may be a little bit more cryptic, so we may have delivery costs to include in the cost, or we may have to work out how many years exactly it is. It might instead say that it will be using this asset until, say, the year 2038, and we'd have to calculate that. But in this question it's fairly clear what our numbers will be. So in solving this question, we're going to use our equation, and I've just pulled that down. This is the same equation we had before, that our annual depreciation charge is cost minus residual value divided by useful life. So we can just plug those values in from above, and it's 1,000 minus 150 divided by 17. And this gives us what our annual depreciation charge is going to have to be in the accounts, and it gives us a nice answer of £50. But that is not exactly what the question is asking for. What it's asking is, what is the depreciation charge to be recognised in the year ended 31st of December 2021? And this is where we can get caught out, because we think, okay, every year we have a £50 depreciation charge. But if we look closely, we have purchased this machine on the 30th of June 2021. And in a previous video we said that we are going to be charging depreciation only for, well, the months that our asset is available for use. We didn't buy this machine at the start of this year, we bought it halfway through the year. So that's what this working here has said. The machine was purchased on the 30th of June, so we've only used it for 6 months. So the depreciation charge for this year, we're not going to apply the whole annual depreciation charge of £50. We're going to do 50 times 6 over 12, so how many months we use the year for. And so the answer to this example is going to be £25. So this example was just to tie in, or to bring in another point. We have to apportion the depreciation if the asset was only owned for part of the year. We're not going to apply a whole year's worth of depreciation for the asset because we've only used it for 6 months. And the reason for this obviously is that a large part of depreciation comes from usage and, say, this wear and tear. So if we're not using the asset for the first 6 months, we don't need to depreciate it. What we will then have is for the next, say, 16 years, the account will apply a £50 depreciation charge, and then, well, so for the first 6 months, we've applied this, say, £25. Then for the next 16 years, we've applied a £50 charge. And then this question is sort of assuming that we're going to sell the asset on the 30th of June in whatever year it is, 2038, I think. So we'll then have 6 months in the year 2038, and there'll be another £25 charged for that 6 months of depreciation, and then our asset will then be down to a value of £150, if my maths is correct. So that's what this question's getting at, that we need to divide the depreciation up because we charge depreciation on a monthly basis, and actually each month we're going to be charging 50 divided by £12, and I'm not going to work that out, it's a bit over £4, I think. And so yeah, so that's our example. That is the straight line method of depreciation. It's fairly straightforward once you understand this equation, and then it's just sort of getting used to the little tricks that may be in the question, in this case of learning what exactly is the cost. We may have to calculate this using delivery and legal costs. We may have to calculate the useful life, and we may have to calculate the residual value. And we then need to be careful with any dates that are thrown in. And if we are thinking about a fraction of a year, we may have questions that ask us for depreciation over the course of 3 months, 4 months, and so on. And they can get a little bit tricky. So we need to remember to apportion the depreciation. So that is that video concluded. Please do leave a like rating if you found it at all useful. Make sure to check out the accounting playlist for, say, the previous videos on depreciation to give a bit of background to this video. And for the next one, we'll be looking at reducing balance depreciation. And of course, subscribe to add some econ to your subscription feed.